Hello. We're on show number 3 with the amazing John Lewis, talking all about how he coaches and how he works with the NLP. And on the last show, we did do a little bit of a debrief on my mind and how I work, which if you want to know how that goes, good luck with you. But we're now going to talk about one of John's loves, passions, specialities, which is around professional sportsmen. Now, I am going to throw it out there. John's not a qualified sports psychologist. That's a whole different ballgame. But as an NLP accredited coach, practitioner, and master prac, John has got a very significant set of tools that can help professional sportsmen overcome certain limiting beliefs, and that's what we want to talk about. I think that was a fair intro. I think I nailed where we are with that.
I could have done it better myself, so thank you, Jamie.
No worries.
And I think it was great that you said I'm not a qualified sports psychologist, because again that would discredit sports psychology, because that's a whole different avenue of training again. And this is why staying in my own ethical professional bodies, that's why it's important.
Yeah, because I mean, sports psychology is massive, right? And like, I used to know a guy, and he only worked with golf and the psychology around golf. And it's literally the routine, the stepping, the moving. There's like people, whoever thinks you just get up, and if you ever just get up in the morning and go and play a game of sport, and then come home and then go and have a couple of pints, you are not a sportsman. All right, you're a hobbyist.
Oh, see you then.
Yeah. But you are. You're not a professional. No. When you're talking around professional, it's a different level, mate, right? Because like, I played rugby for Wales. I played basketball for Cardiff. I've hand cycled at quite a high level, and I played squash in a Masters tournament, right? 3 Masters tournaments now, right? And there is a psychology around it, and it's like, you know, squash is a good one. You know, you hit a dud ball, you've then got to have a conversation about in your own head to ignore the fact that you've just done that. And you've got to remember that that a squash game takes 11 points. Do you know what I mean? And you've got to kind of go, right, that's just one of them. That's a whole dialogue. And it's hard to overcome that, because it's hard to not kick yourself. But then if you kick yourself on that point, you're messing up. And in golf, it's the next swing, or in football, it's the next kick, or in basketball, it's the next shot. And the amount of baskets I used to miss and then kick myself over it, because then I was having this internal dialogue with myself. I'd miss the next 5 because I was doubting myself before the ball left my hand. That there's a lot of work in that. So yeah, I've spoken enough now. So where do you work within this realm?
So every sport you've mentioned, I've worked with someone or some team regarding the whole psychology of sport. Because again, you know, we talk psychology, you know, we've had psychology since the brain has been built. Yet we're, you know, it's a new subject. Again, I had a podcast the other week, and it was Glenn Hoddle. And Glenn Hoddle was the first coach manager who kind of brought sports psychology to the mainstream when he was at Spurs in the 80s. And even then, Glenn Hoddle was openly saying that he brought the psychologist in because he recognised, you know, the way we're thinking is affecting how we feel and affecting the behaviour. And a lot of other managers were like, "What the hell? You know, what's that all about?" You know, and again,
training their feet, not their head.
Exactly. And I would say, you know, when we play sport, you know, life's a performance. You know, whatever we do is a performance. But we don't just perform with our body. You know, we perform with our mind. Our voice, our emotion. You know, the person plays the sport. It's the person that plays the sport. It's not just the person who plays the physical aspect. You know, if we're going into our sport and, you know, we're not feeling confident, what's going to happen? That internal dialogue of I'm not confident, or this is going to be rubbish, is going to have then an effect on me, which then my behaviour is going to follow how I'm thinking. So it's about working here to get the feeling right, to get the behaviour right.
And I mean, most sportsmen live with and have to deal with self-doubt. Self-doubt is probably the biggest killer in sport, because people go, I'm not good enough, or you know, and But then at the same time, overconfidence is just as bad, right? There's a balance in sport, and I'm assuming where you work is to create balance.
Because if the challenge is too low, we fall into a drone zone. If the challenge is too high, it can lead to anxiety levels. So what we need to be doing is helping people to manage their state, so they're kind of in that peak performance realm of, like you say, they don't want to be too overconfident because that can bring its own problems, or they don't want to be at a point where that internal dialogue is, can't be bothered.
Yeah.
And again, every sportsman who sits in here, if I'm working out on location with teams, again, it's helping that individual, because everything is individual. What you might perceive yourself as being a lack of confidence, somebody else, that same feeling you're having, to them is a lack of belief. So I'm working with each individual in their own mindset, helping them process the good, the not so good, to actually help them get the outcome that they're looking for.
So, so one of the other things I've done, as you know, is I've climbed Everest, right? And there was a massive amount of internal dialogue, right? Like, literally, I wanted to give up, like, pretty much every day, right? When you're struggling to eat, you're struggling to breathe, everything is kind of going on. And everyone said to me, like, oh my God, Everest must be so hard. And I go, because I did on crutches, and I'm like, yeah, the walking bit was easy. It was the mental side of it. It was 80% mental capacity and 20% physical. Like, it really was. And it's about that internal dialogue. So how do you can't, what I'm trying to say is, you can't be with me every step of the day, right? So what tools do you give me that will help me at that moment when I shoot the wrong ball, or when I hit a dud shot, or when I'm halfway up a mountain, I'm like, whose stupid idea was this? Like, what tools do you give me around that?
Well, I would ask you, when you're having that dialogue up the mountain, what would be a better dialogue for you to be having? So we're focusing then on what we want, not what we're trying to avoid. Because if I said to you, don't think of me with a Christmas hat on, what are you thinking of?
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think of you with the Christmas hat.
You said the word Christmas hat, so it's obviously it's in your.
I know the thing. It's like, don't think of a banana, and the first thing you have to do is think.
And what generally happens is, alluding to what you said earlier, someone misses that basket, and then the dialogue is, don't miss the next basket. And by saying don't miss the next basket, what am I saying to myself? Don't, which we cannot process. The whole don't think of a banana, miss the basket. So our focus is on missing the basket. Now, the more and more we kind of have this conversation with ourselves, the more and more our mind is in tune to what we don't want.
Yeah.
So the first thing, again, I had a client in here the other day, young golfer. He's just gone on the European circuit. Fantastic golfer. But he was finding his game wasn't at its best. So what he was trying to do was consciously think of every move, which when we're playing sport, we need to be playing on the automatic.
Yeah.
Because again, if you were to pick that mug up, you don't think, right, I need to now put my arm up and do this. By doing it, you're consciously getting in your way. And what he was finding is, because his game wasn't at his best, because of his self-belief, because of his confidence, that he was trying to think too much of his game. So what we did was got him back into just a nice little routine of great internal cues. So we don't want us to have a whole conversation with ourselves. Just some nice cues. And for every cue that he had was a part of his game. So, for example, on the swing, it was, I think, commit. There was a couple of other pieces, and it was like 3 cue words.
I quite like that, actually. I want to elaborate a bit more about that. So instead of thinking, right, I've got to get my feet right, what you're actually saying is, I'm going to commit to the shot.
So it's commit.
Yeah.
And then what we do here, we work on that commit. Okay, so when we're committed, what does that mean? We're mentally rehearsing here. So when commit, okay, now by him focusing on the commit, he's focusing on the swing rather than the steps of the swing. I'm simplifying it as it was, but it's more around simplifying the cues rather than thinking of the whole process.
Because my old coach, so I was coached by an amazing woman, and that's one of the things she used to say to me. Jay, commit to the shot. If you commit to the shot, you'll make the shot. And she used to shout every time I was coming out. She'd shout, "Commit, commit," because that moment of hesitation is that moment when you're too late for the shot and then you miss it.
Yeah.
But if you're committed, you got I'm fine now. It's like bang. And I used to get it every time.
Well, there you go. Because now you're focusing on commit. It's like a simple process rather than a million things going around in your mind. This is not simple. It's commit. What does commit mean? Commit means commit. There's a whole action that is linked to the word commit. So by focusing on the word commit, there's an action involved rather than, but if I do this, I'm going to miss this. I mean, too much. And then that's how you can understand how we can get in our own way.
So running was always your passion.
Still is.
And, it was running that actually drove you to where you are today. So when you're speaking to runners and you're still a sportsman, but let's just focus on running at the time. Running and walking is the thing. So how would you change that dialogue? So when someone has an injury or when they're feeling a bit sore or their legs are starting to hurt, right, which is another one, there's a lot of dialogue going, do you know what, I could just sit down now. How do you break through that?
Okay. Already what you're saying with this dialogue, you're spending too much time internally.
Yeah.
You're spending too much time internally. And again, when we're playing sport, especially in running, by externally putting our senses out, so focusing on the tree, having a little mantra if we come inside, using all our senses that externalize, i.e. listening to my feet, having a word, run, turn, or something specific to you or specific to the runner. But the more time we spend inside, then that's when we start internalizing. And what we need to be doing is externalizing our senses, because then we're externalizing. Spending too much time inside, and that's when the dialogue can become negative. Especially when things are getting tough. Because then what we find is, when we're externalizing, think of somebody who's when they're daydreaming, the eyes are wide open, they're running on unconscious. Okay, so they're not even thinking. And
most people driving home after work.
Exactly, and it's the same when especially when we're running. The more we can put our focus out with a peripheral vision. Okay, what we're doing then is accessing more of the unconscious mind. Okay, we're putting our senses out, so I'm listening to my feet. So the more I'm externalizing out, the more my senses are out, the less they're in. If I do internalize, a nice little mantra, mine was always relax. People say, but shouldn't it be run fast? Yeah, but when I relax, I speed up.
Yeah, I used to count my breaths.
Right.
Like I used to count my breaths. So 2 breaths in, 2 breaths out, and that was my pace. And I just did that. And every time I go, because I used to be a runner, and every time I kind of go into that weird zone, I just start counting.
Well, that's it. It's about getting that zone. This comes back to the drone zone of anxiety. You want that middle part. This is where you work. Make the magic happen here.
Yeah.
If you focus here, you're going to get more of this. If you focus here, you're going to get more of this.
And I think actually that's why people struggle so much to run on treadmills, because when they're running outside, they're seeing stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Where on a treadmill, you're just looking straight ahead at a brick wall or whatever. They usually stick on a brick wall, and you're not seeing anything, or a car park, and there's nothing there's nothing changing. So that dialogue, you got more time to spend in that internal space. So get out. Get out.
That's the key to that. Just get outside.
Just get outside.
Get outside, kids.
So look, if you are a sportsman, if you are any level, and you really want to up your game, and you really want to kind of pull it in and perform to the best, I do recommend having a conversation with John around that, because there is space that you can work in, and he's very, very good at that. So John, how do people get hold of you? How can those professional sportsmen out there get hold of you?
My website is jmindsetperformance.co.uk. My phone number, I've got to think, 07947 828 675. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and of course, the See No Bounds platform.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has been brilliant spending some time with John, and we will see you back very, very soon and for a further chat.